Hello there guys, and welcome to another one of my reviews. Today we are going to take a closer look at the new Peugeot 308. So what is it exactly? In case you've been living under a rock for the past 20 years, this is Peugeot's offering in the compact hatchback segment. So basically this is the French version of the Volkswagen Golf. And knowing that this car has to do battle with the Golf, the French company knows that it has to bring something special for the customers. And as usual, I think Peugeot is betting a lot on its design. And looking at this car and how bland the Volkswagen Golf is these days, I think this car is a pure winner. And I think this is the best looking compact hatchback in the world right now. The design is absolutely breathtaking, and this car attracts so much attention you wouldn't believe it. I know some of it might be coming because this is a brand new car, so you don't really see that many on the road, but it does have a spectacular look to it. So up front, we have a new take on the already familiar Peugeot lines. For example, we still have these fangs over here on the sides of the front fascia that are supposed to give this car a very aggressive demeanor, and I think it really works. In terms of headlamps, you do have standard LED headlamps on all models, but in this case, because we have a GT version over here, we have adaptive LED headlamps, which come with 24 LEDs in each of the lamps of the car. And also up front, you will also notice this huge grille up front, bigger than on a 508, which is decorated with the brand new Peugeot logo right in the middle, because the 308 is basically the first car that brings this new logo into the mix. So gone is the old roaring lion. Now we only have its face, I mean its head, in the logo and the name of the brand written out on top of it. And I think it looks really well. I think it looks that good that you could mistake it for a fashion designer's logo. And overall, the front end is very aggressive. Now, from the sides, this looks like just any other hatchback. It has clean-cut proportions, and it looks really good. You have a 7-color palette to choose from for the new 308, and you have 16-inch, 17-inch, or 18-inch wheels to choose from. We have the 18-inch wheels over here, but I would probably go for smaller wheels because these huge 18-inchers do take away some of the car's comfort and ruin the ride to some extent. Now in the back, we also have new taillights and a brand new design, and they look really well. They keep that claw design with 3 claws embedded in them. They look really good, and we have some sort of tailpipe decorations on the bottom of the rear bumper to remind you that this car still has internal combustion drivetrains. If you open up the trunk or the boot, you will have 412 liters of space if you have a conventional 308, but if you have a plug-in hybrid, that goes under 400 liters of space, 376 if I remember correctly. Inside the Peugeot 308, you will find a couple of familiar features and a couple of new features. Now, the design overall is brand new, but the layout in front of the driver is exactly the same as you would find on older models. For several years now, Peugeot has implemented what they call the iCockpit. Now, this is a solution that's meant to reduce the need of a head-up display by reconfiguring the general layout in front of the driver. Basically, we have an instrument cluster that has been raised up to be in your field of view whenever you are driving, and you have the steering wheel positioned a bit lower, and the steering wheel is also smaller in order to allow you to see the instrument cluster from above. That does come with some limitations. Depending on how tall you are, you might have some issues with this setup. For example, if I keep my feet completely on the floor, I am touching the steering wheel, and when I'm driving, the small steering wheel feels like it's a toy steering wheel, not a real one. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. Also, I still don't see the entire instrument cluster whenever I adjust the steering wheel in my comfortable driving position. So in order to be able to see it right and to see all of its contents, I would have to lower the steering wheel. So I have to position it like this. And in that case, I would have limited room for my knees, and when I would be driving, I wouldn't have a comfortable position with the steering wheel so low. And I feel like I'm sitting on top of the dashboard. It's really a mixed bag, as I said, and you would really have to test things out before committing to this setup. That said, not a lot of people will like this configuration over here, but at least the steering wheel is wrapped in a nice leather all around. Also, the instrument cluster is now showing a 3D graphics design, so things are projected onto it. And if you're not a fan of 3D movies, you will not be a fan of this setup either. Also, it's quite small and you might have some issues reading all the valuable information in it. But this is the old part of Peugeot. This is the new part of the Peugeot, apart from the dashboard design, which is brand new. And I have to tell you, I like the materials used inside this cabin. We also have a new infotainment system. This is a 10-inch display and it is not included as standard. Right beneath the display, you will notice a number of shortcuts. There are 6 configurable buttons that work as shortcuts. This is a display over here, so you can configure however you want them to show. And I like the fact that when you press on one of them, the animation from the button extends into the screen and it looks really nice. Overall, the system works really well, and I didn't notice any issues whatsoever. It may become a bit laggy at times, but it's not a huge deal. It's not like it's going to be terribly slow. Furthermore, you have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay included in the car, and unfortunately they are done using a wired connection and it requires a Type-C connector. But it does work really well. Also, you have a couple of shortcuts, additional shortcuts under this screen that also come in handy. They are mostly related to the climate control. The center console has been redone. We have plenty of storage spaces, a wireless charging pad, a huge center armrest storage space with up to 34 liters, and we have a huge glove box as well. The last thing I want to point out are the seats. They are quite comfortable and you have a plethora of choices to pick from. You can have them in textile finish, you can have them with leather and Alcantara, or Napa leather. We have the leather and Alcantara combination over here, and these are optional memory seats with a massaging function. And furthermore, these seats are AGR certified for comfort, so that's a big plus. AGR is a organization in Germany that deals with orthopedics and stuff like that. In the back seats, well, there isn't a lot of room to talk about. Now, most of the rivals of this car do have more room in the back, especially for taller adults. Now, this seat is adjusted in my comfortable driving position as usual. I am 6 feet tall and about 250 pounds, and 2 people of my size would not fit in the back of each other for longer trips. I am touching the back of my front seat over here, and headroom is limited as well. Now, I'm not the best measurement tool for this sort of test, but there could be more room in the back if Peugeot wanted to offer it. I think some limitations are inherent because of the platform, but that's that. At least we have a low center tunnel over here, but I still don't think 5 adults would fit in the back for longer trips. We have an armrest over here with 2 cup holders. And I also have to mention that the materials used in the back are not as good as in the front. The door panels are done in a bit of a rougher kind of plastic, and it does feel a bit narrow in the back over here. Now, let's set off on the road and see how this car drives. Once you get behind the wheel of the Peugeot 308, you instantly notice a couple of things. The first one is that you will have some difficulties, at least I did, in finding the perfect driving position because of this whole iCockpit setup. Furthermore, I think the floor of the car has been raised a bit in order to make room for some batteries, because Peugeot announced a while back plans on moving to a completely electrified range after 2025, and that will of course include the 308. And the 308 is built on the EMP2 platform, so it will have everything it needs to become an electric car, just like the 208, like the 2008, the 3008, and so on. I'm guessing the floor of this car is a bit taller in order to make room for batteries for the future electric model. And you sit rather high, the steering wheel is rather low, it's compact, and you have the dashboard so high. So overall, you feel like you're sitting on top of the car, not inside it. It's quite a weird feeling overall. And that doesn't really make this car feel very sporty. Now, let's talk about the powertrains available and the combinations with the gearboxes. So you can get a manual gearbox or an automated gearbox. The Autobox has 8 speeds. It's an AZN unit. We've seen it for quite a long time in the Peugeot range. It's not new. We've seen it on a number of cars so far. On top of that, you have several drivetrains that are quite familiar to fans of the Peugeot brand. They are found on a number of cars on the EMP platform already. Now that includes the base 1.2 liter petrol engine with 3 cylinders that can be had in 110 horsepower and 130 horsepower guises. You have a 1.5 liter Blue HDI diesel engine that can deliver 130 horsepower and 300 Newton meters of torque, which is the one we have for testing purposes over here, combined with the automatic gearbox. And you also have 2 plug-in hybrid choices, both of them powered by a 1.6 liter internal combustion engine helped by another electric motor. They can deliver 180 horsepower or 225 horsepower depending on the model you go for, and they should offer you a range of about 60 kilometers on a single charge. Whether that actually can happen or not remains to be seen. I am planning on taking them out for a spin as well to see just how far you can travel on electric power alone. Now, as I said, this is the diesel, so it's a decent enough car. It will do 100 kilometers an hour in about 10 seconds, and it has a top speed of about 200 kilometers an hour. It's okay, and I think this is the choice of the range because it will be the most frugal car, excepting of course the plug-in hybrid versions, which should be the most efficient provided you charge them. But if you're not going to charge them, they're going to be quite thirsty. So this one, I saw an average fuel consumption around town of about 6.8 liters per 100 kilometers covered. Outside the city limits on a couple of B roads, I saw that number go down to 4.5 liters per 100 kilometers covered, and on the highway it was about 5.9 liters per 100 kilometers covered, doing a constant 130 kilometers an hour. So it's quite an efficient engine. It's not noisy, it's well balanced, and it keeps a low volume even at higher speeds. And I do like the sound insulation in this car. The sound deadening is done very well. You don't really hear a lot of noise. Even on the highway at 130 kilometers an hour, you don't hear a lot of noise coming from anywhere. Not the engine, not the wheels, not the windscreen. It's actually quite good. And it's a comfortable car too, to some extent. Now, as I said, you can get 16-inch up to 18-inch wheels, so 16s, 17s, and 18s. We have the 18s on here, and they do kind of ruin the ride. We have a McPherson setup up front and a solid axle at the back using a torsion beam. So it's not the most comfortable car in the segment, but it's good enough. And you do hear some noises coming in from the suspension if you go over bigger potholes at times. So it's not the quietest suspension in the segment either. It's a passive setup too. You don't get adaptive dampers on this car, but it does its job decent enough. If you want to drive this car in a sportier manner, it will do rather well up to about 6/10. If you go past a certain threshold, it will start to understeer quite a lot. It doesn't lean that much into corners. It doesn't have a lot of weight to carry around. It's only 1.4 tons, which is actually okay for this size. But at certain speeds and in tighter bends, you will feel the front nose diving towards the outside of the corner. Furthermore, the rear end will start to slip because we don't have independent suspension back there, so it will start to slip and break contact with the asphalt. So it is a fun to drive car because it's light, but up to a certain threshold. You really shouldn't go over now 7/10, maybe 6.5. But overall, I actually enjoyed the car. It feels well built, it feels well damped, well sound insulated, and with this engine, it's quite frugal. So I'm looking at 3/4 of my tank. So I still have about 3/4 of my tank full, and the car shows me a range of about 620 kilometers left. I think you could do like 800 kilometers easy with a full tank of diesel with this car. So that's actually pretty good. Now, the problem the 308 has is that it is competing in a really busy segment. So in this segment, you will find cars like the Volkswagen Golf 8, you will find cars like the Honda Civic, you will find cars like Ford Focus, what else? The Hyundai i30. So it's a really busy segment. It used to be the most popular segment in Europe before crossovers took over. But even so, this is a big market. So the 308 has to do battle with the Volkswagen Golf. This is the main car that everyone is targeting in the compact hatchback segment. Alongside the Renault Megane, they are battling it out, but the Golf is winning worldwide. Does the 308 have the tools to beat it? Well, it's not as refined as the Golf. It's probably not as spacious inside. I didn't get to test drive the Golf 8, believe it or not, because this car is so popular that I simply cannot seem to get my hands on one because all of them are sold before I can get one. So I'm assuming that the Golf is a bit more spacious and it might have some more technology on board. But the 308 is the better looking car. It attracts so many curious looks from everyone, especially in this color, this olivine green color. And I think that's going to be its main selling point. People buying this car will be looking to make a statement, will be looking to set themselves apart from the boring and conservatory choice, which is the Golf 8. I think it has a lot of potential. And I would like to hear you guys tell me what you think about it. If you would buy a 308, if you would buy a Golf, if you would buy a Megane, if you would buy a Skoda Scala. Tell me which car in this segment would get your money. I'm looking forward to your comments. That's it. This has been my review of the Peugeot 308. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share, and of course, subscribe to keep this channel alive. Until next time, ciao.